Very good evening to everybody. Church will be good evening to everybody watching me right now from wherever you are. And good day, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are watching me from right now. As I publicized now, saying that about 8 p.m., many presidential candidates, Alan Kyerematen, Ebedi Nkomo, about his plans for the country if elected into power. And there's a time. Sorry for the late start of this conversation. I think we are late for like 26 minutes. I'm very, very, very sorry about that. So, I think I brought a Makom Semene, the flag bearer for the movement for change. Any in Nkomo about what he has for the country, especially for the youth of the Republic of Ghana. And in no time, Alache Martin ever joining me. Now, yadi sa in common for everybody to know what he also have for us. As usual, my name is Zionfelix. Na yeka Alan Kojoto Martin dia, most of us we know him pa. But before say ibidi in common, mami Emma brief information about him. Any where he's been, how far he has come. Before say Obeye, the leader of Movement for Change. So Alan Kyerematen is a presidential candidate for the 2024 general elections here in Ghana and former Minister for Trade and Industry. He is the founder and leader of the Movement for Change, a political organization established to inspire and lead the process to change and transform Ghana into a prosperous, united, and peaceful nation. He is also the leader of Alliance for Revolutionary Change. He was appointed in January 2017 by President Akufo-Addo as Minister for Trade and Industry and resigned honorably in January 2023 after 6 years of service to pursue his presidential ambition. Mr. Kyerematen had previously served in a similar capacity as Minister for Trade, Industry, and President Special Initiatives under former President John Agyekum Kufuor between 2003 and 2007. Prior to that, he served as Ghana's ambassador to the United States of America from 2001 to 2003. The bio about Alan there quite chichi because why and no one etimi ache. Now I mean Twasso from here. He no regional director for UNDP's flagship program for enterprise development in Africa, Enterprise Africa, establishing enterprise support program in 13 African countries. Prior to this, he was a senior corporate executive with UAC Ghana Limited, a subsidiary of Unilever International, where he worked in various managerial positions with distinction between 1977 and 1984. Mr. Kyerematen was the leading architect for the African Continental Free Trade Area, that is the AFCFTA project between 2011 and 2012, and successfully led Ghana's bid in 2018 to host the headquarters secretary of AFCFTA in Accra. Because me can't Alan Honomadia but right now, no, he happens to be a presidential candidate. I am admiral this December 7, 2024. Yekoto aba osegana funa entimi ento aba entimi emana entimi enoti na ene Zionfelix me be hosti Alan John Kojo Kyerematen ne ehu the policies no edoso pa. In fact, the great transformation plan no edoso, but ye be beating it down near share the plan for the youth of the Republic of Ghana. I know here because most of my people I'm your youth and I'm just not your youth yet me can now once, but once a while we go off kakra near share other things or work for the country, you know. So and then the Behe Alliance 10-point plan for Ghanaian youth empowerment. Okay, let me go on straight and then add him na yini about what he also have for the Republic of Ghana. As time goes on, I'll be reading a comment and then I'll bring people on for them to also ask Alan Kyerematen also what they want to ask him and how Musano the Obutin Ayama or my Konkon Ghana say Nyami after December 7, it will declare as president na January 7, 2025. Utimi could just simply no sign as Omampenia. So it's not just going to be about Zionfelix and Alan Kyerematen and what I have to ask him. I'll also give you the chance to also ask him what you also want to know. The name is Zionfelix. Me trying say yeah. Okay. Um. I'm trying to add. Okay, I'm trying to add, but I'm sure I'll get him shortly for us to have this interview. So he'll be with me shortly. He'll be with us shortly. Na Yadisa and Komoe. So yes, in no time now, Alan Kyerematen will join me for us to have this conversation. I'm having challenges here. And I'll join me. Na yedi young common. Okay. So yeah, in no time, Alan Kyerematen will join me for us to have our conversation. And don't forget, and I think somewhere yesterday or yesterday, and Alan Kyerematen, it's me and I was in a running mate. In fact, it was good news to a lot of people, especially those in the creative aspects, because Yankasa our very own Kwame also down so and the flag bearer for a movement for change. It's me announcing, as a running mate. In fact, I buy on social media, I saw lots of people in the creative aspects, now Omobo say, and then people also in the law side, some also able say, because coming goes down. So while now okay, a music group Echo Home, we need Nescafe some years back, and creative as for say almost so omenya dear a politics, especially when it comes to okay, yeah, somewhere was so yeah, I'm sure in no time. Okay, so I think we are good to go right now. No, me His Excellency Alan Kyerematen. His Excellency, good evening, and thank you very much for joining me on my live this evening.
Good evening, my brother. Today,
Very
well. It's great.
and then you to have a conversation with you.
And so, offer ave mejonga.
Last time I show Kumasi no mean.
I was telling my team that you know all these big influencers, big names,
Yeah.
they have so much goodwill for me. So all you need is to get in touch with them. I was telling them, I'm a catcher, you won't copy chain, you're just waiting to support me. I'm happy that you haven't forgotten about me.
No, me feel cry. Yeah, how has it been? I mean, since we already say Obama as presidential candidate, Elfosa, and I say I hate Tawe.
Media, Yedika, Oma, I want this page now. Now, I've been on this circuit for a long time.
Yeah.
From President Kufuor's time through to President Kufuor's time, and everybody knows the story. I came out to establish the movement for change. Now, Usha, the Mijina Samedi, APA free MPP ma make us say Niama Timikuaye movement for change. No, a drive with that decision. Idea I'm saying Ghana phone na fei first na ebi intimacy. But fair church mu the ntia be free mu no and the person me no. A lot of people now have literally welcomed me with so much passion and enthusiasm. The other kind, well, like to say, everybody is tired of this duopoly, MPP, NDC. I would say, over 32 years, MPP, NDC, so, if we want to be very fair to ourselves, and after 32 years, the changes that should have occurred in Ghana should have been way significant. But what has happened? NDC, at the end of their term in 2012, they landed us in 2016 with the IMF. After 8 years in office. Yes, MPP Zubaya. After 8 years, they've landed us in an economic crisis. As I speak now, the two parties, NDC and MPP, they are debating among themselves who is more corrupt. They are debating among themselves whether there is doomsday or there is no doomsday. So it means that whether it is NDC or MPP, the value is the same. That is why if you go around the country, and main America, 70% out of the population are looking for change.
Okay.
Everybody says that you ever cry and Tuaba. Now, and no, Anna, made me message per say, yes, the Ghana force or my prayer MPP this year. They shouldn't lose hope because there's an alternative, and I'm providing that alternative. And because I've been in it before, I'm the right person to tell people that and that this is the new path that we can chart. Anybody who has not been part of this process of politics for the last 20 years, if they tell you that they know how to change things, how can you believe them? Because you've not been inside. It's only when you've been inside that you know what happens inside. And then when you come out, you know what to change and know what to change. I don't know whether you make out here. So far, no dear. It has been amazing, the organic love that people have shown around the country. It's amazing. But number two, the circumstances of our time is speaking to the narrative. Anuchi Ananko force say, even though the circumstances demand change, you know. Alan say you can say if ope onipa baako wɔ Ghana ha say aka Ghana for betumi di ɔmani ato no so say saa nipa yi di ɔba Ghana besisa Alan, whether it's vision, whether it's competence, whether it's integrity, or is whether it's your capacity to act. And I think that's why the support for me has been overwhelming. The service now, Nkofo ni namo mo yende ya. Man fanya ejuma. Na uko interview nipa 2000. When I'm now a year, and only a survey. You like, if you like, go onto the ground and ask people. You don't need to do any scientific stuff. Go onto the ground. They will tell you one thing. As for NDC and NPP, it's out.
Okay.
The only thing that we are not sure about is whether Alan she has sobeba. But you need sobenya ba. If you say yenya emhumpa sobeba. Na sobeba dia. Then so this is all that Ghanaians have been waiting for. Na nyamicha there yesterday I found.
Okay. Now, Kasaba NPP and Sensem, somebody also argued that now only NPP for it was just last year, January. And with me resigning as trade minister. And no, Okasibi NPP for you were with them for like 7 years in power. Into what I said, I don't know who 7 years, no went me Muama and no more answer. Fina, Okasibi NPP for Nadia.
Number who said, make a BBC, she remove and the winning in Mwasep. And to the fact that we can't and no honor, that is the more reason why. So if you remember what I say, the question and yet into SHS. Number two, there's something called collective responsibility, but there's also something called individual accountability. Collective responsibility does not lead to individual accountability. And so as a chair is saying, chair Moka by you are all collectively responsible. But when it comes to individual accountability, everybody answers for what he was tasked to do. And he said, a person, young MPP for you are them. It went back as MPP 9 years. No mom say a person, yes, it do saba. And now Ghana a pine in it. Are you seriously as telling me, Kazawo? Obi, every time because say if the roads in Ghana are bad, I think come and answer for it. That's individual accountability. The main bad edition is and no maybe shall say now the issues are account for it. That's individual accountability. That's not the same collective responsibility. That's only a candidate. The other can say
Okay. So, as a former trade minister, during your period as a trade minister, now over 10, how will you mark yourself?
Oh, 9 over 10. The old lady now, my 104 years now. Not a teacher, was it or child, many years back. The teacher from Guarano will be to me exam 10 over 10. Now, remarks column no or say could do better.
Hey, 10 over 10, no.
There's more room for improvement.
Improvement, yeah.
10 over 10, there's more room for improvement. My idea, the idea, so of course, there is more room for.
Okay, so let me ask why Kwame Osudanso as your running mate.
May make key commitment, open commitment, public announcement. Say, I see myself as a transitional candidate. I've been a minister, I've been ambassador in Kufuor's time, ambassador to the United States, I've been minister for trade and industry, under President Kufuor time, now for portfolio, Minister for Trade, Industry, Private Sector Development, and Private Sector Initiatives, PSIs. Now, President Kufuor also the Minister for Trade and Industry for 6-7 years. And she said, no, I've served my time. No, say, I believe in the fact that the young people of this country are our future. I've made a commitment to say I will create a path for a new class of leaders to emerge in Ghana. So I have said, I'm a transitional candidate. I want to groom that new class of young leaders to take over. Because if we don't groom them to take over, they will take over by force. And that is where the challenge then comes in. If we are not one man kasa, we have some preparation, kakra. But because in Penifo we are not giving way and they don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, then they are forced to take things into their own hands, which is like what happened in Senegal, what happened in Nigeria, Kenya, so on, that trend, And basically, media, I'm paving the way for a new class of young leaders. I think in Kero, I am living up to that commitment because Osha, young, dynamic guy or a lawyer, was I a executive, was I a broadcast journalist, Anna on one associate musician or a part of the creative art industry. Oh, and also a political activist. If Ushan at his age, not sure, but we're combining all these characteristics and features here, then I think I made a good decision.
Okay. Now let's go straight to a year policies, but and then they hear more about we the youth, and what you have for us if elected into power after December, December 7 post, the 10-point plan for Ghanaian youth. But so about the Senate, more arrive at this 10 plans for the youth.
What I did, if you look at the GTP, the bigger picture now, I have 6 clusters, and I say 6 different components of the great transformational plan. On the economy, which is the economic cluster. That's the first cluster. The second cluster is on governance. That includes corruption, public sector reform, and constitutional reforms. Then the third cluster, which is equally important, is infrastructure, how to rebuild our infrastructure. Then the fourth cluster is on social services, health, education, youth, sports. Now, the fifth cluster on our environment and natural resource management, including Galamsey, the account. And at the last cluster, mindset and attitudinal change. Ghana for Yesuni a buying ye normal ye no ene or mine impuntuni ye kanko and Barbara and no any the last cluster. And it is a 6 different clusters here. Now, and no massage chem in each cluster, my breaking it down into different pillars. And it is a social services cluster now. A honor which health, education, youth. And the youth pillar under the social services cluster. And no namaka say, and nam say mebru and kai kore e hiaminitino. Ma separate Anna ama deeper into the policy interventions that can move the youth forward.
Okay.
And only the 10-point plan for youth empowerment.
Okay. Let's delve into the 10-point plan. No, and it's what whom in fact, with me abwa youth. No, now let's look at the first one, the A. No, a minute na. Yeah, financial support for youth business.
Yes.
But my further questions number from there.
So we say your target is to create opportunities for young people. If you are giving them a job or you are providing opportunity for them to be self-employed, those are the two options. So over to me, I be a man, and I say, be a kind when you're to my. Now say, let me pay there. Baby, I see a shot here finish it. One nipano. Now, on one to me, and you be for himself. Say a year business council teach you. Say on one casa never to me creative baby a man. If it says, oh, to me creative be a man, your benefit will be greater than even when you are working for somebody. Until the starting point on the Alan 10-point plan, and it said, provide financing assistance for via person or ye bibi mano. Say, oh, idea, mania. Now only sika, your idea becomes a dream and it remains a dream. But if you have sources of funding to realize your dream or your vision, then you are on the path towards financial security. I don't think I may say, who there 70 to 80% of young people are almost they are all autonomous with upper for they are all in commerce. If that is the starting point there, how do you improve the opportunity for young people to have financing to put into their business? I am saving and commerce, and because government will answer, an Allen government will support the private sector to establish for the first time in the history of a country a traders bank. The traders bank means that one more sika and a buy abua mama or akekasi and a buy some big money detri so more fan can non-fan bank. There's a multi-bank now. Now say you my bank Canadian. Sika pia we hear the baby gun or cover. The man say many who say who banks money and they could be a job. We don't have a therefore, the can say we need security. The can say cover equity black. We need drug crowd between my ground. And say a more bank there or a four banker. And your nature say, when you say a wow bank, it would be so out there. And that's the first thing. It will bring a cost of money for commerce or trading for young people to bring it drastically down. And at first, it will improve access. So the first, Nanka will Yesika and Shega, say, or call the bank or there, or you trade and wide, Miss Abeka. That also means GDP and now Alan plan say, Obiwa na nya boja adwuma na opese oye opese bia osi factory and I say odoafuo and why some big business I don't know bia na traders bank scared be ma no bia na I don't know and me cover the cost of establishing a factory and you know you say a buying would mandate banks to allocate 10% of or more profits after tax. Chese, nyase abai ebeka so sika unye profit cross you tibima young people find a business. What you be what do I want profit no na abai anyone negotiate say the bema incentive be say the beya who the 10% of profit no allocate to support the friend collateral free concessional lending, meaning that you need security, only collateral. It is as a can says our banks, are buying a bomb, no decides no amount as a loan, and as a factory, it will be collateral free. And I feel so interest. And that also means so be a tech company. To say the beer word you may away say. So when you scar, and ama the only problem, the opposite mostly, but now for yourself, and it's nothing to. They say, the Yaba, what you man, the opposite you be out to me, epic, but so go be to share with dear or no person follow footsteps or person or no starting, no person. When you toss our equipment or do we are or banker to be any to start a tech company. And uti approach a technology company. You have venture capital. Venture capital they finance ideas and innovation. And say no, you be a friend the Sovereign Wealth Fund for Ghana. You know, I'm a bar or the beba. Omuna ebe to me ama venture capital sika. Say, yem fama mu especially one person we technology because we are see the piano or more support to tech companies, you know. Venture capital and we from angel investors.
Okay.
There can be a chat on say when say company you are also better young people. I didn't because the background of only training there. Avena or no building experience. Now, I be found now Baboka at train you on. And no phobia or experience per qua. I get better. It's not say time piano will be a pause 3 years minimum experience. Now, one training now Obefa. And the other sound bank a appetite say will be our school for young person before
okay.
It's only I know the Alan can say Obeshadama companies grant training grant. I just say young person the bed mouse free also would be training about the just a companies in here offer young person also if you say your man a buyer man grant obey to me the training department. So now training and yaneka. I mean you have because I will go but some person
how easy people can access this funds. I also do Obama the youth who want to start business because they be a say bang way or how but with my will say the things that they'll be questioning. Well, young boy, I mean 29, 30 years, almost started to be now. How will it be easy for the youth to access these hands? Because who you think more ideas not so, but I guess the car are on the best at it.
And no one make one say, and now the experiences of the past said you can it a non-concessionary finance and answer because sky electrical say ko bank ko normal bank sika when we say unsan kabi and non concessionary but the way me can say aban ebema collateral obema banks no incentives ama bank na ma collateral free concessionary loans. So who can we say or ideas or banker is for security.
Yeah.
For collateral. The other one say no ebema banks no incentives, tax incentives bia no obegina no so no aka say young man yes so who ideas are now ni collateral and security and now support aban their money make me amount loan without any security. One with difference. And there are some kind is a typical bank be anywhere or because loan for startup.
Yeah.
Now one more a loan and now sikase for startup business. Or should be a normally from venture capital companies and angel investors. They finance your business idea by putting in equity. And yes, Benyeska. At the moment, no start out this calama. Unya profiter. No attended over 5 years, no, or to tell na free one. No, job with mama. I'm coming at it from a different angle.
Okay. Okay. So I have more questions there, but as a man doesn't, let's move on to the business development support for the youth startups. No, when it comes to the 10-point plan now, where you mentioned that you facilitate the establishment of youth-owned small and medium large-scale companies in sectors including industry, agriculture. That's the point being on.
Yes. Yes, the American is first section no. You see the Japanese. Now obi Usika as a young person. Now only you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the skills, even to run a business. Just can never shake. So this kind of we are then as a buy a pep or provide management and business support so that you use the money profitably. Now some business support it's not going to happen by chance. And the kind of say, so we a young man, me a buying bet my culture say, well, cross your no, and young one open business. And yeah, and Chromo boys are my year school in a or much or moon yet man. So a banker say, be more beer, co bank near mouth, or beer, which will be about Baku. The over no anyway. It is idea buying I become one boom in a cooperative proper company or come one boom what a company amount and any a friend youth owned small and medium large scale companies.
Okay.
Or take company amount or come up boom not a company album say a year a say a year factory namukoyo say a year forestry namukosemudiana. The moment or demo abomuno not a company amamuno say or seed funding amodibe equipment amodibe yedwan so seed fund now or the mamu amodibe equipment and no obey no work can pay then nam say what can you pay 40 abomuno say or solve that problem now it's as was go ni back at once was go ni 40 and a no and now the scale no or no and then informal business na mokoi chese what is idea enka sikani bi e wo no awo ni sika no akra equipment na wo si factory na afi o produce dia orange juice na on the region eti chese no abai ebo young people or come up at the companies am so that they can start owning their own means of production. And no, the new business model now, you see empower youth. Instead of helping one young person, if you put them together and you create a business for them, you've helped 40 people instead of one person. Now, me, my bida, for example, for Banso, Bemuna, be a minister for trade and industry. Now, me who say, Banchi, cassava, ya, a property Sibia, Ubetimi, a usu, a dia industrial starch, Ubetimi, the cassava beer, Ubetimi, the so many food preparations. Such as I put together 10,000 people, 10,000 people. And me ma buying a ma womo funding. Yes, I buy company, I buy a ma almost seed funding. I set up the modern cassava starch factory for Bojiasi. Kwame like need fufuna or yenina. Okra base no need fufuna na base no cassava. No, free Thailand and whatever. And Serbia Oko need fufuna so a plantain a year. Yes, I know what you're going. Yes, you walk basically a starch. Cassava starch. Now, the plantain now mix it. Anna, we are baby. Or Tisa, yeah, sa factory no. Maybe Ghana. Guy tower Thailand. Eto sa factory America owned by 10,000 farmers, young people. The quality now, and I'm saying buying a boy or more anything. Quality was so high, say, Guinness for example, a year before or more per tall, a product maybe, and on the first cassava beer in Ghana. And I would say, grouping young people, creating I say big businesses for them is the new path to pursue.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about Galamsey. Because we have Galamsey now, youth I mean, we call mining area now. I mean, you see a lot of videos even online. Youth no and Ewumupa. What is Alan-led administration plan on this issue when it comes to Galamsey in Ghana?
So, for Galamsey, there are 3-4 different problems associated with Galamsey. But there are people mining in river bodies and pollute to water. There are people mining in forest reserves and degrading forests. There are people mining on the land degrading land. Tutu amna yen kataso. And number 4 so no one more say the community, because yes, one more and say if you Galamsey na ye two amna ye gold kakra na entiama acquire to say adwuma wo baby bebre no acquire Galamsey adwuma now one need license so and now usha na it is acquire to say the problem a hydra headed sebroni beka and it so na they did kind of person usobo Galamsey yes be equita excavator ni akoshe excavator ni akofa security men ye dia goguo ye je be shoot nipa sanka eno excavator ye season ye shino it is of Galamsey any problem. The truth of the matter is say you took Galamsey say to Galamsey like wako a crab no almost edo that is almost business and what you have to do is to make sure say you would create the right environment for it to be mined legally. Because Galamsey is illegal, you have to create conditions for legal mining. And the way you can do that, and say, number 1, mining and river bodies there. It is completely out of the game. There are not enough sanctions. Ebetimiama woma etu Galamsey ewunsum womo ebetimi adwene ngwasom jai. Ebi say penalty na associated with that. And yet strong enough say ebetimi abo bi ehun. But no so any the main problem against Galamsey, mining in river bodies. It is the number one solution to completely abolish mining in river bodies. Obia who pay mining in river bodies it's a life imprisonment price here the maximum penalty and it's here the because yanya is hey the over can be a non-fine. Number two, any mining in forest reserves and also maximum penalty. Nagana for it is aqua Israel. Say, when him say, would him bet 5 years, 10 years, Sika Onyan, or mine. So obey or look up with them. Say, if the punishment is so severe, when you say a chiwa, that is your end, a giant death penalty. And a hundred their own room, the sanctions, for mining in river bodies, any forest reserves, and no, they must be so severe, say, and no, they better be their attention.
People do argue that. I mean, these young boys not more pretty or illegal mining or more painful bishop. I say, assemble and then they'll pick phone and call there. So this penalty, uncle baby.
Say, the victims are the young people, but the real controls, people in high offices, a bit politicians, a bit business people, and no actually. Now, Sana America say you can say you are mining in river bodies. A quite new one. What is it on my permit to mine in forest reserves? Yes. I don't think there is no deterrent. But what can I say? No, there is completely no. Is no. Now the about assassins the so moyeno. And then I make us say and benefua a war Ghana or mukra mineral rights. And one year can say I said you just mineral rights if you almost say. Now young people now or mumuna ye use Omuna yen create mining companies. They said that no Kenya. So area be na nipa be 30. Boys, obi na use omu and omuna at risk. So once you start creating these mining companies for and on behalf of the young people, you give them the right equipment. Make sure say they have the working capital. And then above all, you train them in proper mining standards. And so now we sure with the mining license now, or not your new use of what convert our license to those who actually are involved in the mining, young people. So a short period of time. The issue of Galamsey will not arise because they say, I'm going to say, you have created a new business opportunity for those doing Galamsey to do it properly. You are making sure that you have established the right corporate structures for them. One seed money. See, at the Christ carpenters near the work and pay. Work and pay. At the end of will be a just go. Yeah, the more work and pay within 3 years. No tracker. But we are becoming your own. But the difference is that you are not creating it for one person. Your groups of some method now became groups of the same people and what come on and I feel warm. And so now. What's our moment the mining license, as I say, will make me iron property. and then also training them in environmentally sustainable practices. And this is different from say, what didn't who see no or yes something illegal. But it's the maker what you it is a way politician now you come out license and I will be used to take advantage of them. It's not going to happen.
Okay. So I'm having a conversation with Alan Kyerematen, who happens to be a presidential candidate for this December election. He happens to be the flag bearer for a movement for change. And check and to me, I think it's somewhere yesterday or 2 days ago, and I will name me Kwame also down to KOD as a running mate. Oboda Chidom Senebeya December 7, Ghana for a Kotoa bar. Between Atoman. We didn't come more about the plan for the youth. He has a 10-point plan for the youth. Or say Sagana 40 to after December 7, January 7, 2025. It means so I be the next president. Obit me I about the youth. No, he has a 10-point plan. It can't baby now Hong Kong. But one of the most important things I want a 10-point plan a Juma. Because if you go to airport right now, it's about 9 hour Ghana. Airport to see a flight to no. Maybe na youth need to obikwa kuda 2-week visa. Nimpa is land the immigration this type of boom or return it BM because of pay ejuma ewo abuche. Ebikwa the saddest part was if you call the Gulf countries now in fact ya this amunko Jordan amunko because onya juma anya Ghana no so Jordan or Kuwait or those countries now obenya kakra egwe bottom etimi aseniska abagana or could do no na SNP. Now let's look at the point C, which talks about jobs for the youth. How is movement for change? And I say Alan Kyerematen led administration no ebitimi attain distance be ya emebunu so o man koko Ghana muso munye adwuma aye.
Yo de kan yenyanu a omutu kwan ko abroche efiti independence e ba yin lórí ọ̀nà ọmọ kọ́ ẹ̀dwuma na ọmọ kọ́ akọ́yẹ. Ìtì sẹ́ ọ̀bẹ̀nyà ẹ̀dwuma ní bí ayé wọ̀ kurom a nkọ̀tà abroche. Sẹ́ ọ̀bẹ̀nyà ẹ̀dwuma ayé wọ̀ kurom a nkọ̀tà abroche. Ẹnu ti the first way a ọbẹ̀tìmí ẹ̀dí ama saa exodus no ẹ̀sọ́ ẹ̀twa is to create job opportunities back in Ghana. Obia what to kind of is easy to survive. And it's a question of providing hope to the young people. Say what's Ghana? Ubenya Jumai. So more guarantees Ubenya Ghana. Uncle Hustle were outside. And the first thing GTP and Alan Air promising is on train can say Oba abemu ansana wamasa hope may create youth employment digital platform 3 million jobs in 1.5 years. Now say who we a young man na wadwene dada say adwuma ni wonti who for so pay sika extra ticket akoye adwuma wala to wala sa obedia the ananka say platform your day within the next few weeks now online you profile yourself with your resume beba na enuma alan anya ka o GTP news oba or the beba so many different jobs in so many sectors and to choose be Salam be president over person be adwuma now profile na say January Alan is president within 1.5 years you are guaranteed a decent job in Ghana now when you know the well and I mean train say me ba na be president you are and Salam adwene be adwuma be free platform so ya show areas new sectors. Say pharmaceuticals, say petrochemicals, say industrial chemicals, say vehicle assembly. Only they say, Mama, ya assemble cars organ. So
yeah.
Within 1.5 years, and now the policy made bar Ghana. It's a policy here American master
Yeah.
and now policy the bar Ghana. Say 5 out of the 6 global companies omuye cars no omunyina assemble car organ. Toyota,
That's true.
Volkswagen,
Toyota,
Nissan, Kia, Hyundai, Peugeot. They say omunyina assemble cars. I don't think so. That line in our person will come within 1 year. Allah, the president, will not only do assembly, but spare parts for Ghana, component manufacturing. And to not just say, I want to I want to say, oh, that is the line now. The person may and no, you indicate that a bomb say now you say because 6 months training, and then you feed yourself into that job. So pharmaceuticals now person and also profile after 6 months you go through the training. This is the platform guarantee jobs. That's number one.
okay, so apart from creating jobs, I mean, people do also talk about the salary they receive. People are employed, and at the end of the day, they get like 1,000 Ghana cedis, and he or she will be doing calculations. Let me transportation company saying, how much will I even get to spend on myself at the end of the month? So people will get job to do, but the salary that they'll be earning at the end of the month, is also a problem.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
What calculation now? Where they come back, I'll give you 1,008 euros a month. If I spend this on my rent, I'll even get this thing to send this to my mother. But if I'm in Ghana and I earn 1,500, 2,000 a month, the person will say that it won't do anything to him or her in Ghana.
Number one, the GDP now, the economy is going to be diversified.
Okay.
We are talking about well-paid jobs, decent salaries for Omwa Ebenya Jumaye. One will say, according to say, in Nigeria, what you are going to introduce into the economy. Manyaka said, Alan, I'm coming into power to build an enterprise economy. Now, an enterprise economy is a business-driven economy. And then we can say it is a capitalist economy. In a sense, yes, America is an enterprise economy. China is an enterprise economy. These are enterprise economy because they developed their private sector. So it's all about business. And it's the same enterprise economy. Anna, be creative of Ghana. And I'm going to say, I've done this over the years. I created Enterprise South Africa, Enterprise Botswana, Enterprise Uganda, Enterprise Nigeria, Enterprise Ethiopia, all over are creating opportunities for companies to grow. And it's not just a experience, President when I was outside government, I was doing this for the whole of Africa. I'm running United Nations, one program to create businesses in Africa. See, at the risk of sounding boastful, I know what I'm talking about. But people are president, I do not ban on why that one was it with my employment problem. Oh, because we are talking about well-paid jobs. That is the difference.
Now, again, nurses are crying, teachers are crying. I mean, I talked to a nurse, I think a month or two ago, where he was saying that he was out after school. He was at home for like 3 years before he was posted to a place. And then again, when he goes to work, maybe upon by when there's an emergency, let's say or Rashiko Juma, we was assigned to Okwa, Yamao, abuchi like also like abuchi the pain hours into we extra hours are in the car. So into I don't know maybe fear because the house his house is closer to a humanity no anybody else be anyone a friend no people say into no do they give him any extra money or say no. First of all he stayed home for like 3 years before say again okay extra hour nature and kind of said 3,000 it's the same 3,000 no extra money. So I say it will even boost your morale to even go for that extra hour in case of emergency. How do we solve that when it comes to that angle?
Okay, I engineer and also a resolve problem. Now, I don't think now we 3 years we are nursing school only adwanye. If it's there, Slovenia adwanye chair post to government hospital.
Yeah.
True or false? Something or TV or trying to see a post to government hospital.
Yeah.
Number one, government hospital no if you are an video. If you are say you can have problem. And once you number two, say one part nipa say capacity to absorb nurses, is it there? If you are hospital, the staff strength, if you are only 50 nurses. So if you produce 150 nurses, say 100 better if you are and first is a question of is the infrastructure even available? And if the infrastructure is available, what are the job opportunities in that facility now? Let us only because I have government hospital, do they even have the money to pay you? Even if they are quite on here for the answer to all these three questions is no. Now, why is it no? It is not because Abai Efili said it is the responsibility of government to build hospitals. Meanwhile, Uzuniska and Uniska, you can build a hospital. And if you can't build a hospital, when you train the nurses, they'll have nowhere to work. The solution is what the movement for change and non-government promised. They said government does not need to continue building hospitals because you don't have the money to do it. Nemo provide tax incentives to the private sector to now construct different levels of hospital infrastructure. Now, and no, now we are buying, we regulate. If you say, who can't GTP now, you will be a friend of community hospitals. Why do we talk about community hospitals? So, Ghana say, we share the health sector now at the lowest level, there will be a friend chip compound. And we will first there is a health post, where now a dying 2x4 be now, a young community, yes, a health center. And only in class level. Then, if you are who health facility be our idea. Not what yes, district hospital. From a class or no, a chip compound, there is no other hospital facility. District capital. District capital is and yet district is in a hospital or clinic. And so now, if you are not by regional hospital is also crown, region sitting and the work regional hospital. And I do want to cry. You see, regional hospital, they are renovation. Now, if regional hospital, so there are only 2 teaching hospitals. And you could go now, it is a usher, the structure you are making. Now, I say the only way is to bring in the private sector to fill the gap. It's my say the first gap I ever feel in is Dr. Bio school government a seed fund work and pay. What's a community hospital in every town in Ghana? There'll be a community hospital. Like a community hospital. Let us say no. A buying a standard design, the same design from Mampong to Suta to Jamasi to standard design. Now, Ansana, the sum of working capital, would be a run hospital on work and pay basis. And you're free. But in Yasa, if you are buying them out, it's facility, work and pay basis. And you won't say, just through this initiative for the private sector, about health infrastructure, about Sini, I just said within a matter of 1.5 years, every single town would have a decent clinic run by the private sector. We also know about Aboka, and I want national health insurance, and also pay for health services to support our community clinics. It means that a new set of health infrastructure. The NPP can show Musi agenda 111. It's only at the district level. What about the towns in the in the district? There's not only the capital. And this new community hospital, private sector clinics would totally change the health delivery interface. And it's open here nursing school. A choir would improve dramatically because in your government hospital, all these new community hospitals owned and managed by the private sector would absorb all the nurses who have been trained. A very baby criteria more and son. Maybe the one would make one.
What I say? But will the pay be good? Will the pay be good for them?
No, that's what the mechanism. Say no, what me infrastructure no. And no, sika upper system because Kaiser at the base of all this, we see you are creating jobs.
Yeah.
Sika upper the the sika upper the there was spend here now. When the people are poor, they cannot afford healthcare delivery. I don't think apart to say they reinforce each other. They reinforce each other. Now, what is your system here? Your GP, general practice doctors. Now, not just say one will be also your family be our home. Say, dear, Kumasia, Ashantrita, dear, teacher. Your family doctor will say, Asuka, you will say, sir. Now, no, sir, family doctor, no, Obia, the family doctor, Ocean. It is a ne, area, also, your first point of any family doctor. And no, cry and what about family visits if you and now we're going. And you are not and yet clinic, on there, a small practice. And it does. Your first line of health delivery. Now, I know na ufriwa general practitioner here GP no. Say oshena uyari no or above him and na and so na refer first to a district hospital. Of district hospital na enye ya Edwako regional hospital. By the time I see Edwako colleague and now of an noche. Na so uyari no. Baby, and we bet me actually. It is over different levels of health infrastructure. It means a support to a. Now, you say, I think we get. I see, you a very cry a problem. I think, can also crown pa, a bet me SCC BBR so to say. me see there will be 100,000 booths, health screening booths, 100,000. I know I say kiosk, but 7 year kiosk, the kiosk, but a small health booth here. I don't know yet the health screen. Say if you check your pressure, if you are check your sugar, and now if you are malaria, your malaria kit. So normal way, and you answer will call hospital. Over check your pressure. And you answer will call hospital card. 100,000 booths and I installed at different vantage points. The dear who take a crowd health booth. Uka fawa yen check your blood pressure and yen show sugar. Now I no there a minimum cost. If you have a 5 cities. Of course, like 10 cities. Now, mom, you check your pressure amount. Now, who problem with your pressure? And so now, with GP, no, what area or health booth, officer, I'm a with GPO. Now, GP, no, should want to be handler, and so now, the next level. And I see, now, health booth, 100,000 is going to be owned by young graduates. SHS tertiary, 100,000 jobs immediately is created. Meaning, so one idea from fiberglass. Yeah, fiberglass, and you just kiosk. Nice one. Anna, it is a woman with me. I get equipment in a kiosk in Yan. I buy Anna amount seed fund. We are Ukojibia as a first, your Japata would do. Ukojibia, a work and pay. Was Kakakra, Ubenya from Uchaki a cover pressure near Deno. Now, what did it? Yeah, over by 1 year. Now, very well.
Okay. My last question on the jobs for the youth. No, it took quite. We do UK. You hear somebody says, "Oh, me Ghana could be a Jumao." Maybe I can say, "Hey, Ghana men who tax then even the workers can't be boona. I buy and wow my Juman koso usika by Shimenko." So the diasporans know what is your plan for them so that they can pump money into the system for them to create jobs for the youth to also get more work to do in Ghana.
So the aspirants, they are ambassador to the US, the creative platform be a friend Ghana Skills Bank. Because we will say nipa egu abroche no. Any sabi omo nim die any experience omanya no. Yetimi ehu omo where they are any the omo ye na ye betimi enya program bi a edi omo beba back home oba no be a friend soft landing nyese oba keke so oba if it's oba no acquire to say or the knowledge and everywhere Ghana either private sector and as a oba abayajuma. Now Ghana Skills Bank was the most powerful instrument of identifying diasporans and what they could do. So no abide over now is a initiative program here at over. If it's a open if you a child ticket amount, if you have no family, so I say if it's a Uber, Ama Abba Ghana, and the type of opportunities also buying an amount that type of Uber, you walk straight into a job. And you're not cafes, you'll be quite broached if you say, oh, now, brain drain. I think it becomes a brain gain. Or what call exposure. And you do a mobile as a special program. Because if you say, you better start the petrochemical industry again. Say them, see me, yeah. Now, me want skills banker all over the world. When him say, I can see mensa, a year, you are Chevron, where I would BP, where I say, and my profile of the skills bank. And I'm started petrochemical industry. I know that I have A, B, C, D. Me do a more about starting the industry in Ghana. And the same another programmer, apart from say you attracted diasporans, you know, to come into the Ghanaian system comfortably. Yes, I'm about to train young people to fill opportunities created outside in a structured way. And yes, we were to find Kakasha, Ukonam Desert, so as you be where Abana said that training because Wamu said there are countries, baby, here, Nipa. I can tell you, maybe we here truck drivers, maybe we here welders, maybe we here nurses, maybe here teachers, all over the world. And when government now tap into these opportunities through your embassies, your missions abroad, and a training for to export, to fill those gaps. A organized export of skill. And it is a question of leadership. Can any problem if you get the right leader who understands business and how to operate a farmer? I didn't make the aspirants. It's a big problem.
Okay. Now let's look at sports. Youth in sports. I mean, recently, just some days back, CAF just told us that we can't use Kumasi Sports Stadium. That's just by the way. Now let's look at how the Alan-led administration will help the youth in sports.
Sports, and facilities.
Yeah.
Sports facilities, sports infrastructure. Obi waha, swimming pool da. Olympic champion in swimming. Oh, as I'm gonna make
that's true.
Yeah, about boxing. Say, Usha, the kind of boxing gyms in there, it's a boxing champions. And the first solution for an Angolan government is to bring in private money to build sports infrastructure. Abai can never mobilize money to build sports infrastructure. Ebina, I say, you will never have the money. And invest, give the private sector the incentives.
Abai takes money from these organizations. I mean, the CAF, the FIFA, when we qualify for tournaments. So I don't know, those can be all these things.
How much they get. As now we can to invest in sports infrastructure. And yet, you are talking about big money because we see a first class modern gym. I don't know about this because we encourage Obina money incentives, tax rebates, way near there. One over basic modern gym. When you say training boxers now, we are obetimi sabi at the Omar fight. I'm not betting me recover this kind of I am no businessman. You government, you don't need to worry about that. What the enemy say? You have provided incentives to attract private capital into sports infrastructure. That's the first thing. Number two, what I call community-led grassroots sports development. Oh, say football, say boxing, say hockey, say tennis. When you go down to the community, the grassroots, I want to identify proper talent. And the grassroots community development first, now coach or more about yes, I hope now real talent.
Yeah.
And also say promote to grassroots and sana what may applicate talent. And what is first year say you will be a friend in Tako.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people in
High
sports,
schools.
high schools. They say because Abankra has no vision about how to enhance inter-college sports. And say kind GDP now. They say get fund, Sika a bar you try levy, you try get fund levy. If you go get fund, all kinds of things here this can here. Want to see a BIS interco. No, you can say it we a part of the fund near the support to and I know actually now, like I say, I say we make sure say time the government in support of the private sector or more AC academies. You must give them the exposure. So on with the major. Yes, I will train or any panel or qualify say or Olympics in Kwa and I don't know. Even when they are in the build up stage, now would want to 2 point, then they get the experience, and the exposure, because we don't take sports seriously. It's a joke. No matter in the FM, first, and any part of brutal force, DK poison, as one as a break. But things have changed. You can't depend on raw talent. And for anymore. I don't think about football say. Me can say identity Michael Essien your point here as someone join woman you know how difficult it is to survive in the Premier League you know I will say small problem be better was na ave person retire from the international league you retire but local league so I say we bro so and then say you have wasted that you know at the same time no so no obi o local league quite say which was or international level however because they are very difficult to wait many international placement we say on our local league no so and so no so onya kwan enti minimum down for I friend water Esposito any set platter ye create your friend African Super League. I don't know we are saying nipa ni mo. Me now feel create Africa Super League. And sana omo try say omo the concept ne be call Europe, akwa European Super League. Na nam say omo need the right formula to who say omo here say European Super League po and you anya adwuma. Na say ke yes sir and can make sure how sports development can fit into continental and internationally.
Okay.
Just
before I move on, it is possible. Let me take your view on this CAF ban on the Kumasi Sports Stadium issue.
But I think it's rather shameful. Say a qualifying match outside your own country, but Rebecca said, "I will cause some." Say, and once a man if you can't develop your infrastructure now your continental standards and international standards. Say anything can say we need our standards, still ever more. It is unnever. Intermediate the key say this must never happen. It's a real shame. Say Ghana first countries out of the Sahara. But the key is what I'm talking about. Allow the private sector, give them the incentives to invest in top level infrastructure.
Okay. Now let's look at housing in Ghana for the youth. Right now, I'm sure so what say it is not easy to even rent, let alone to even get a plot of land to buy. Plot 1% dollars, maybe a quarter plot to buy, and even to build. Now cement prices echo. Even rent issue can be intimate. What is your administration's plan for housing issues when it comes to the youth?
say, oh, a young person, now, open say, when your baby do to now, while person when you're dying and not renter. The only way you can do that is through mortgage financing. Now, oh, see, I say, oh, because you always see that. It can happen. And this year, the Ghana for house, you make blocks, 1,000 near the go, you die before even later level. It doesn't make any sense. Kakra would be, you know, who say, Makoto Sasi, Koto Sasi, and son of area and crowd of Koto Sasi, and a crowd to the area, because who for so the developer who for so who feels that there's pressure on you. And what to say, what down for be also for so Koto die. Koto die, she can't be toy in Grawuni. Now, Fay, who yanaka crackabose, or what you know, because what for so see that a very small problem. Alan say, Abrocho bien wo his cato say, the Koto die. Nobody does that. A mortgage financing and the editor die. Obioti America and now Europe or catch or say what die. A 30-year mortgage, you know them. Or semi dying a mortgage. And I said, Pusumi be a 10 mortgage. That's the way we are acquire house. But to have that replicated in Ghana, you need to create a mortgage financing scheme. No, be sure you mortgage finance. One will do that because Nipanua or no ebedi finance fraud. Pusumi be a or Sika a show because 25 years and let's say about two boom to say the has say banks are more mortgage financing and mortgage financing. Who will be 5 years, 10 years. That's not mortgage financing. When you find 25 years, 30 years, then you have mortgage financing. Now, a known America say introduce you and every young person who has a paycheck at the end of the month, you can get your house within 1 year. Who be a school? They said the first, one thing I want him, yeah, school brand. Who be a school and now what do I train? And I want young people when they say, China next year. You be a school. Now, for 4, the amount offer. Me say, maybe a university. Bank of Ghana see a family. USCC a family. And then to get into Bank of Ghana, and according to the system that dictates the opportunities. It is a young person under an anti-materialist government, you get a job. I've promised 3 million jobs. Once you are getting a paycheck, mortgage finance now prepare. 1 year, you start you own a house.
Okay.
Of course, it will take you some time, but to pay. But that's what everybody does. How do I want to fear now? Mortgage, so fear.
Yeah.
Within a dance, two new problem here.
Okay. Now let's look at.
But it's also say 1% own house, now person rent as well. The legislation, a laws for rent control. And that idea, I bet me support to first time rent.
That's what I was coming on. The rent issues.
Because we will have to change the laws and review the legislation. Say no house owner and our landlord and bet me rent property to any individual and have more than 6 months rent payment. I am running the year. That's I know you have to enforce it. Now landlords are often worthy because Sana Kakoba, because you'll be pray. When you can't 2 years, no be discovered. But a yamra, and I say rent control office, you be what rent control officer? Rent, but even not Timon Crown or the to never review or not towards a rent control officer.
Okay.
It's a joke. The Brewa, Pia, what trouble said, I would know say a small leadership. If right leaders, you have the right policies. If you have the right policies, the problems will be solved.
Okay. The rent issue there is very, very important, because I'm not saying Emmanuel, but the enforcement, and a problem.
Yeah.
Because currently there is 2 years. Young man, I'm going to.
David, we don't have kind rent act. A kind of mountain of Mutimikasa. Now, Obi America, I decided to say, yes, tax, Obi tax. It should be sir. Obi America say, what is the significance of the 15th of April? 15th of April. What is the significance of that in the life of anybody living in America? Say 15th of April, if you haven't filed your taxes, you go to jail.
Okay.
We are joking. And you look at some run over the nature of the provisions of the law, and whether people can get away with it.
Okay. Now, let's come to my own medium, the creative space. We have a lot of youth in the creative space. I mean, over here, even our space right now, most of the musicians, actors, poets, painters, most of them are youth. And check on I organize a Chelawatu festival or Accra. Now youth know a display. What is the 10-point plan by Kyerematen saying about we the creative Ghana?
The problem with those of you in the creative industry is that you don't have cash, you don't have money. Creative industry, there's no way you can develop your talent. Now, the first thing, because it's about money, is to have a source of funding and you're based on the banks. Because bank now say, oh yeah, who are talent. Bank the annual what if that the open say oh yes studio near time scam. Who be that? I don't see GTP now the 10-point plus say establish a creative industry fund. A creative industry fund to support young artists, filmmakers, musicians, and content creators in the arts. This is the solution. The Creative Industry Fund, Ghana Sovereign Wealth Fund, mobilizing and should go into the Sovereign Wealth Fund. It is now I know ultimately creative sub funds to say Creative Industry Fund. Is that government is not looking for a return on that fund or the ama punto aba. It's no so fund no ba. To me, if you are in the creative sector, you don't need to go and show your security collateral and that because it's a creative industry. And then number one. Number two, say access to funding for the creatives now. When they create now, they have to expose the outcome of their creation. So we are filmmakers, you see more opportunity to expose it and showcase it. You cannot monetize your creative outcome, your talent. And the second point I say, host an annual youth arts and creative expo. So, if every year there's a big expo. Now I say, we in the creative industry. Every year, so creative expo because that is the melting point. Expo. There's people from all over the world. That's where they will congregate, and that's where you can expose your talent, and then also network. Once the creative industry is about networking, just one person out between our networking can give you the breakthrough in whatever you are doing. And to first bring money into the industry. Number two, create opportunities for them to showcase their talent. Number three, make it possible for them to protect their intellectual property. Intellectual property rights. So we are a young person in the creative industry. Not say you cannot protect your creative rights now. The monetization will be to the benefit of Obifofo. Until the intellectual property rights, I don't know, that is the most important thing for those. But very importantly, what in the field of tourism, every tourist location in Ghana is serious. We must build businesses around every tourist location. So, tourist location via said Ghana Grandpa because you're creating I didn't know bit on t-shirts where I could create any small artifacts. Young people, Anna, Uko France, Paris, so Obia ABB. So it is giving the opportunity for them to be able to create business opportunity around tourist locations. You know, sir, out of the 42 UNESCO certified heritage sites, yeah, tourist sites or heritage sites are UNESCO for and certified. Out of the 42 historical sites in the world, Ghana has 32.
Hey, wow.
Ghana has 32. But go to these sites, nothing there. So, and if we were escalating these sites, you bet me say that creating, I say, youth-owned businesses around these tourist sites. So, it's our creative industry. We can be say, those in digital space now, because all creatives, you're digital and non-digital. So own them. But in the creative industry, those in the digital creative space, okay, me 10 point plus support digital content creators. Tell you, support digital content creators, including influencers, bloggers, vloggers, by facilitating access to training, global exposure, and also building the monetization of their creation. And it's a mission, your president, every trip to be a Mekobia, those in the new media, influencers on the various new media platforms. Almost come delegation where we say, yes, I'm the GBC television for Eddie Magina and Uguay.
Okay.
These influencers, Anna to me amplify the content arising from my trip. I'm getting it is a question of leadership. And Sana, the cost of data for those of you in the digital creative space, the cost of data everything check on the media.
That's true. You have a good plan for the youth. But just before I go to my last but not least, let's talk a little bit about education, because minimum education, our 10-point planning, education for the youth. Let's look at from junior high school through senior high school to the university. Right now, we know we have 3 SHS in Ghana right now. I'm for some more almost about so Alankash yeto abano ma December 7 now banabia January 7 2025 obe president will you continue free SHS and I say obe abolition also the different plan about for education for the youth in Ghana?
Very important question, but because you mentioned education, let me start with the fact that free SHS is a good policy. I'll continue.
Okay.
But I will undertake an assessment of the free SHS program. Number one, in terms of the financial sustainability. A point being a first one, we will maintain, because the way I hear is say, a bedroom baby, no, Sikakri development, and assess it in terms of how you continue financially to sustain it. Assess it in terms of the infrastructure requirement. Say, who call a year, secondary schools, or her, or Mudidi in pens. What did that? Say, and Obi Ekodidi, the dining hall. So, go school or Ghana.
It goes to Ghana,
yeah. Obi did 12 to 1. They did 1 to 2. They did 2 to 3. Because the dining hall infrastructure is limited.
Yeah, it's not accommodating or money at a time.
But you see, it's a joke. The Americans say it's a good policy, but the financial and infrastructure and teaching capacity requirements to sustain it, must all be studied. But my grandpa there, what the free SHS is not to my whole concept of reform and revolutionizing education starts from pre any pre-primary.
Okay.
So by the time I need to do JHS, not Masa, I said the way the was starting from Mudana, but from pre-kindergarten to kindergarten, and only the formative years of Obiagene. Anna, Unyamba Wanim say pay into post-primary pay. Now, about a year, the focus must be on critical thinking. How to train the mind to think. Ghana education based on critical thinking. We don't create people who think to solve problems. Yet it's how to pass an exam. It's only how to pass an exam. You chew, you pour, and forget. Sometimes I'm read people I feel more school when you say chew, pour, pass, and forget. Would you chew, pour, but I'm read? Oh, it doesn't work. The plan is that you have to build at all levels of the education like that. This whole of creative thinking and critical thinking. And until Uber say, Uka America here, Ubetima your music, or the choir medicine, identity. Because the creativity, any critical thinking, and enough to make him go through medical school. So the whole curriculum, for me, has to be changed. Number two, we are also looking at, are we training people for the world of work? There's an imbalance. American, it doesn't add up. Say, you are not prepared for the world of work. And the American say, made a new program about say, after SHS, you have to do 1 year compulsory internship or apprenticeship. And then go university. 1 year, you see the world of work, what it takes to survive in the world of work. 1 year. And then about university. After 1 year compulsory apprenticeship and internship, one more year really smart. And I got into a yo, compared my you. And yeah, the other way around today, if it's all about university now, yes, smart. No, it's the other way around. So 1 year exposure now, or no, it can start him off to become a billionaire whilst you are struggling in school. Bill Gates, I don't want man. First year, I say, because of the exposure after grade 11 as a grade 12, no one said what he can do with his mind, he's going to waste his time. That's why you're school now. Yes. Omunina. Suka ga when you say, almost school almost started here or it is about exposing you to the world of work and only the first thing. Anna so a say when to me and kukudro pass it through 1 year of compulsory, you know, and when you could do and twice business. Now school and after SHS, you know. Now I don't know that we SHS after tertiary, who are 2 parts. Those of you who would like to go into formal work, you know, or self-employment, you know, that fund be a kind youth entrepreneurship development fund. It is there to help you start your own business under the Start Your Own Business program. It is a more than 50 and we tertiary education. Some of you will go the business line. It's either you start your own business, there's a fund, or you go into formal employment. Then the other part will go to compulsory military training. It's not compulsory, it will be a baby, but it means that you have 2 options. Either you go the business line or you go for 1 year military training. Now, 1 year military training, who we are, then you qualify to enter into what is called the National Reserve Force. We are here, every serious country we are our National Reserve Force. Now, some National Reserve Force, you know, it is meant to train people who will be put as a reserve in case of the need to deploy them for security activities, defend the nation. And nothing, yes, Obi, I say, when your protocol, when you will be, well, a police service and not training, it's not going to happen. It's an option. You have opportunity 1 year, 1 year training, National Reserve Force will come, and also will start building your mind and your need for discipline. So on the check.
Yeah.
See, even after 1 year, no, so National Reserve Force, not still you enter into the world of work with a better disciplined mind. One formula. And there's nobody who is going to come out of school under an Galamsey presidency. Either you go into apprenticeship, internship, or after tertiary, you know, you go into the National Reserve Force or you go into the world of business. I just say,
Now, just before we go, you share the youth mindset about the country. Ghana dem when you media mumpevisa mamena menko baby nko tena Ghana de enye akose youth ni bo ha omuni aresemu wo omani omhedi we no mesiko hedi the dollar is flying onye adwuma nye security in the country obeso pa edu rainy season in so to na ni area ho yiri bridge da ho na ebu na amanfo to youth ni bi ni Arashemu woman say Ghana be even in the next 100 years, we say Ghana be.
When I want to paint a very dramatic but real picture of the mindset of the average Ghanaian young person. Yeah. That is actually the truth. But how do we deal with this? I don't think America said you need a mindset revolution for the young people. Now, the only reason why you need that is they need hope. Someone said, it's about, if you have new leadership that has created a certain environment, when you say, that mindset, say, it will change. I don't think it is not going to happen by chance. It is what we can say. It requires resetting, a cultural resetting of the mind, and only mindset revolution, particularly among the young people, not to lose hope, but to have faith. And that faith can only come from your leadership. And it is also having programs and initiatives that will program their mind for that mindset change. And it's now here, Kwame Nkrumah time, you're young pioneer, who can pledge, who can we, your mouth a scarf, all those things, I to say mindset brainwashing. So, only America near Kwadakasa, or fancy America, it's the greatest place to be in. It doesn't matter what you say. What means you brainwashing. So, but I find say brainwashing, people may see it as a negative thing. No, but that is what you can describe as rebooting the minds of our young people or resetting them. So for me, no matter Kenya is important, but this is the same point. If we don't reset the mindset of the young people, first you reset and reboot their mind, then that creates an opportunity for you to enter with your message. Now, message I don't think it's really a cultural reset. Now, that is what Alan is talking about. Now, the competitors, EBK, slogans, once a media have gone deep. She said, even youth, so you can imagine, it's about leadership. I can tell you, this whole thing is about leadership. Now, me, they want that faith and confidence in our youth. And they say, at the age of 22, I was a manager in the largest company in Ghana. At the age of 22, and even at that age, not me say I could perform to that level now. I don't think any say, why shouldn't I have faith and trust in the young people? I don't think I make a commitment, say, I'll take a young person as my vice president. Now, that then would demonstrate my commitment to say, indeed, I'm a transitional candidate. I want the young people to see in my vice president themselves. Say, debate me and there's hope for us because you get to represent the youth.
Okay. Thank you very much, Excellency Alan Kyerematen, for joining me for an hour and a half, and a little over an hour and a half. But commenting the dorsal questions and dorsal. But I think during the beginning of our conversation, many boss were I'm saying that memory feed that man escaping me about I think because about port duties, which is a little bit away. It's not away from the youth because we also buy cars and port things.
No, medical care. You see, say no, and NDC government was the same thing. It's a lazy way of raising revenue. Did you have office there? See, I'm Jessica Porter. Yeah, and then one more we have free port now. Then one say, is crossing. Charge duty because I don't know a point first one and said ultimately any revenue for the state, including blocking corruption. So corruption, the cost of corruption to the economy. Many I say putting levies duties on imports, is of no use, is of no relevance. And to me, the say we will literally strip all these port duties, charges. You know how many duties, any levies, charges, import to. It doesn't make sense because I buy an argument there. Oh, what there? Once I import no man, do better be a wait here. So
that's true.
Now, who have Nippon on our how? Because remember remember, on no importer. Now the duty to swear. Or also over time, passing on. Or passing on now. It causes inflation. Any inflation in the economy creates a reduction in purchasing power. Yes. And the Obian Tardy, because who pays is a way of raising revenue. And the our import to be the open now they are also. And we are seeing those economies that have developed, they make their money through direct taxes, not indirect tax. So I say, I mean, no, literally don't pay anything. Then when you make the profit now, I feel like I say to your profit, to have tax, corporate tax. And all of it is in a GTP. So many as GTP. So when you make Alan the next president. Because every solution here in India,
It's a co then I young country, ya mamma, ya papa, you no more above 18 years. I am Yaduma, December 7, 2024. Yako Twaba.
Can't say, the Paduna teacher Mebuno, Oma Abemobu, they've lost faith, they've lost hope in politics, they've lost hope in Ghana. The way to catch one is a chia Zubui about leadership. A brown brain now for so being says, if you have failed leadership now, then of course the people will know so. 32 years are NDC ni MPP Babem. Or make us sound my enka when and go once to be percent kind of what say mebuno say or more papa no man no no or more say a MPP ni NDC they cannot solve their problems for them. So commitment solve what in 32 years he come solve. Yes. MPP there, it's clear. What make my young come will be because of him. And the alternative cannot be NDC. So the same thing at the mom or men who are there now. And one for Alan na Alan and Mrs. Sanoma. Now on no cry the annual per our record. If you say 1994, a bar say Time International Magazine. Yes, Womu Nipa 100 pet all over the world. They want the 100 global leaders. Yesha Omuna Ebesis and Riaz. The status say yeah, list to number 1 was Bill Gates. And Ubia Bill Gates. Sure, where 1994 Bill Gates started Microsoft in 1992. But Omusha, the way they listed him as one of the people who was going to change the world. Yeah, John F. Kennedy Jr., the Kennedy family, no Musha, he was the one who was going to follow the footsteps of J.F. Kennedy. Eka, Sebio, Unyani Baby Koya, the guy was going to become the next president of the United States. Jeffrey Sachs, Ubia William Crumbs, Kakroni, one of the leading development economists in the whole world. Ave Yebobodi here, Alan Kyerematen of Ghana, 1994. He's one of the 100 global leaders. Now, 1994, now, you bought 100 leaders, you bought Bill Gates, you bought Kyerematen here. Now, you got for 12, the next president of Ghana. Now, someone said, Alan should be the people's choice. And Maka said, with the government of national unity neighbor. Yengi obi Freeman said, when your party A and a party B. Well, with my man here the power. So we have people also in this no, so you see people. Sabi, unya politics grandpo. Now we medical practitioner and now traditional authorities. You are more religious, faith-based organizations. I am Kabuma Bank. And Alan say a bit more solve your problem.
Okay, but do you think
they took Ghana for any?
Okay, just before we go, do you think not having more than half of the seats in parliament will worry your governance if elected into power?
You are crap because still a government of national unity means say, I just say those who are in parliament, the best in parliament, will be the ones who will come into government. If it's another year, what say NDC, say PP, say independent candidate, don't make my year, man, and I offer a grandma a bam. I don't think Obi aka buy no. It problem by the way to have. Obi a wo mu bi. Ana face so no kra no said the aka no. Me say me kwa reduce the size of my government instead of the 120 ministers. Say it will be only 40 ministers. It will show by the constitutional requirement. 40 ministers, just say 20 pay, and I need to bring from parliament. And we just say parliament, parliament, 220, either from independent NDC, NPP, because we know behind in Toka, we them say, I can't more buying the big man according. So any problem, crap.
Okay, thank you very much for joining me. Okay, so I wish you all the best. I hope Ghanaians do listen to you. And December 7, when it goes to the polls, they will vote for Kyerematen and KOD for them to be president next 4 years.
Mama, Mebru Ghana so and your baby is Ghana.
So that's it. Okay, bye. So I talked to the flag bearer for Movement for Change, is the presidential candidate Anyame Aduma. December 7, 2024. In Kotwaba, Obechinism actually on a KOD say Yento Aba Emano, because he has a good plan, he has a good policy, and we just looked at a 10-plan policy for the youth movement for change. More Edema Mebunu or my Konko Ghana. Okay, a 10-plan now. In fact, we looked at financial assistance for youth business. We also looked at business development support for youth startups. Mama was starting a idea as a planner or the mamuna or kase or maybe a bank be a bit makoho na it's me akoposia and no guarantee. There's a kofa we break no, and no it's part of the key 10 key pillars no a lunch Martin or adema again. We looked into jobs for the youth. Na ehu hia pa because adwuma amanfo esu se adwuma eni eye o my kokro Ghana mu we bitma ko school sa obewie no na onye adwuma ye ise kokotoka ise abobe 10 our Ghana enche. I'm sure say Air France be 2 KLM be 2 Brussels e bitmi atu se 2 year amanfo na age na efi Ghana around 4-5 o'clock no Emirates ni other ones ni Ethiopia Airline ni nya tututu abakona youth bebe na gum adeya omoko amanone akopa adwuma. It's about jobs for the youth. Kyerematen, I can say, within a year and a half, with me accuracy in at least 3 million. Yes, 3 million within a year and a half. No, 3 million jobs. Everything me for the youth and job for the youth. It's me I can want them. And then again, we talked about housing for the youth. I was saying about buy more. Send a buchino, Obana, Otoda, cash down mortgage no. So the Baba Ghana 25 years, 30 years now, it to tell Danka, and so now thing. And then again, with rent, so no any 2 years, years, but you have 2 years advance, but you have 3 years advance, or so there be, or buy and run over, or bet enforce it. Na be 6 months, 6 months, or currently Diane, what's me in that regard. And then again, we talk about youth in tourism, creative as space and social ourselves, or bubble for to sɛ be ya oh yeah babu na bia what talent be but so ye bibisa na eja and so what me dey so akobom na what me enya sika e dey invite. He listed a lot of things, and then again we talked about Galamsey, because okay Galamsey na e mebu do na ewo Galamsey nim, and so buy and okasa no ochim say emra ebo ho especially eba in suna amanfo SSN no ne forest na amanfo to Galamsey ho no. In fact, or the strict rabbit ma to come pay if you come it my ABR. You might go to life imprisonment for that. So to me, emra neswa. In fact, policy no also we also talked about amount for perception about the country because Bruno na lose interest o ma lose vim e wo o ma konko Ghana mu na Alan Kyerematen echimo because of the leadership no ye wo Ghana no na amana esa. We talked about also youth in sports so ba from the basic na no obetima so se the be coast for no obetima ba interco and so wetimi ahyem kana because me kai pa me wo school mo interco was brutal kasi ko interco e was school ma na obia energy interco super zonals and amilo na manfo any etimaje power say from beginning na no obesusu no oba bede centers ama manfo so private entities and so etimidi sika etin abashim se na be youth no ye ni betime age sports when we talked slightly about a calf ban out them commercial sports stadium and I say the Emrana Basse is a Ghana, it qualifies now, say born outside Ghana no, because you need picture, it is ever say about match or no. And one important thing we talked about during the latter part of our conversation was about education, because I think most of the youth need a school and more about education. So about free SHS no be cancel no, and so beto so and I say obey enhance no so about free SHS so no obey no any year because if you right now do you say even high school no dining mukono in batches of which is not good because in high school breakfast lunch supper you call at a go you can say breakfast you teach him maybe a class we call first batch na no sir to say free SHS in there a good idea by the MPP or bar obetimi ashemukena no fighting no send baby to my boy no say even SHS in so no panka from preschool to KG to primary no because we be to quench honor when call high school. So I mean, these are the things that Alan Kyerematen, who happens to be a presidential candidate, I was actually a flag bearer for a year movement for change. It's me a chechemu edema and chair, and also it's me and I say Kwame also done so KOD as a running mate. KOD happens to be a lawyer or a media practitioner. He was also, and as I'm a musician, Echo, a music group Echo, na a KOD, Okahobi, and I'm winning this cafe years ago. So on a year, Alan Kyerematen, ne running mate, December 7, 2024. You got to about almost a year tomorrow. Now, Omo Winia, Omitima Boa, Amagana, within Zionfelix. I hosted Alan Kyerematen, aka Alan Cash from Germany. Bye bye.